Hi everyone, I'm Carol Ibbotson of coolwool.net. I hope you can hear me. If anybody joins me, just let me know. I am a knitting and crochet designer, tech editor, pattern writer, workshop trainer, and also now a TV presenter, which has been quite fun. Um, in my Facebook group each week, I ask what people would like tutorials about, and one of them was how to weave in your ends as you go. So that's what I'm going to show you today. If you want to join along and find out more about other tutorials I give, my channel is Cool Wool Design. So that's my YouTube channel, my Facebook group, basically myself on Facebook. Everywhere I am, I'm called Cool Wool Design. Okay, so let's have a look at weaving in your knitted ends as you go. Now here I've got a sample that I did. Actually did this as a slip stitch tutorial a few weeks ago with the lovely Charlotte from Funky Makers over on Instagram. We did a live over on there. And I never finished it off, so I thought, well, I might as well use this to show you how to weave in ends as you go. Now you can see so far I haven't weaved in anything as I've been going. I've got ends everywhere, and I have to say I must be quite weird because I actually quite like weaving in ends. Yeah, I know, don't ask. So that's why I tend to leave mine, but I'm going to show you how you could do them easily, and perhaps a reason why I didn't used to weave them all in. Okay, can I have a thumbs up from someone or a mention in the chat if you can hear me okay? Because we had a few technical issues last week. I'll carry on and hopefully I'll get a message from one of you. That would be great. So, what I'm going to do now is join in another colour, and I'm going to show you how to weave in ends. Okay, so let's get started. All I'm going to do, I'm not going to do the slip stitch this time. I'm just going to do simple stripes. So the first thing I would do is just make a loop for the first stitch and make that stitch. Okay, so give it a little bit of a tug, then both ends. Now I'm going to separate. See, these are my ends from before that I didn't weave in. So I'm going to separate. I'm going to leave quite a long one as well, and I'll talk more about why in a minute. Separate the two ends, and I am going to hold those in my left hand. Okay, so I've knitted one stitch. Now I will just knit one more stitch without doing any weaving in, because I don't like all the bulk to be at the side there. So now we're going to start the process. So just simply go into the next stitch as if to knit. Lift these yarns over, knit, pull it through, and then take them back. Now those of you who watch my Fair Isle knitting videos will see that this is exactly the same technique you used for that. So let's show you it all again. One stitch, you just bring these up. And it doesn't matter if you bring them just up over one needle or over both. Some people do over both, but I find that a bit tricky. So I just go over one, the back needle. I make the stitch as normal behind those strands, and I finish the stitch, and then those strands are back over there. Then when you do your next normal stitch, it traps, if you can see that there, it traps the other side of those two strands for you. So there we go. So that's how you do it. Simple. One in over the top, knit the stitch, take them back, and knit the next one. Now, how far should you keep going? Well, that depends actually on the type of yarn. This yarn's quite slippy, so it could have a tendency to come out. So I would actually do quite a few, probably about that many. How many is that? About 10 stitches I've done there. Okay, now don't cut your ends yet, and I'll give you a reason for that in a minute. I'm just going to go to the end of the row first, and then I'm going to show you how to do it if you have to join in on, say, a purl row if you're doing stocking stitch. So I'll just get to the end of this row, and I'll pick up another colour and show you how I would join in on that side. As I say, this is so similar to how you carry floats across when you're working Fair Isle. So those of you who've watched those videos will recognise it, I'm sure. So there we are, we're at the end of that row. Let's turn it round. Now let's join in one more colour. I'm going to go back to my mustardy yellow colour and use that. So I'll go into, I won't actually cut this white, but I'll carry it along as if I was going to cut it off. Go into my first stitch, leave a reasonable amount of yellow. I don't know, what is that, about 6 inches, something like that. Make a loop and put it over the needle and take it through to the back. And then at this stage I just separate the ends, pull them a little bit, tighten this up. You can always tighten it up later. And then I will work my next stitch in yellow. And now I will start weaving in my ends. So I'm just going to take them over to the left hand side. I'm not as great with my left hand, sorry, on Pearl's side as I am on the other side. I find it a bit tricky, but let's start. So I'm going to start weaving in. So just like the knit, just take them over that first needle, make your purl stitch, take it through, and then drop them back down to the front. And then purl your next stitch to trap it. So let's see that again. Into the stitch, take the yarns you're trying to weave in up over that needle, purl the stitch, and then the yarns come back. And then one more stitch to trap it. So let's just do that one more time. Over there, purl, back, purl. Okay, now these are woven in now, these ends. But I just want to show you why I don't cut them off yet. And the reason is, and this is actually why I never used to use this, I found that as you're knitting, you're doing so much movement with your work. I found that sometimes these last stitches that you'd woven in get a bit loose. Okay, and so because of that, I thought, oh no, you know what, I'm going to weave them in at the end, nice and neat. But then I realised that actually if you just left a bit of yarn here and using a spare needle, if your first stitch is loose, you could just go in there and tighten it a bit. Oops, split the stitch there, but never mind, could be fine, we'll come back. And then you can actually pull on these ends gently to tighten up that weaving in. Okay, so that looks quite nice and neat now. But always, obviously, you need to be aware, you guys will be, that this has got to stretch into whatever you're finally wearing. So if you pull it too tight, it's going to come out again slightly. So again, I always leave a little extra tail. So I would cut this about where my fingers are now. In fact, let's do it because I've got some scissors. So I'd probably cut that yarn about there. I would leave a little tail. Now you might not like that, you might want to pull it further, but that's what I would do. Now if this still, at the end of all of this, you find, actually I don't like that weaving in, it's not staying, I don't feel secure, you could always pull it out and do it the traditional way with a darning needle and actually pierce through the yarn, and that will keep it nice and tight. But you know, you can do this. So let me just finish this row and then I'll show you the other side and see if you like the look of this way too, the purl side. Let's just get to the end. See, I shouldn't have cut that one. Remember what I was saying, I wouldn't actually normally cut these ends off until I've done all of the knitting, and then I tighten them up and then I cut them, to save them coming undone as you're fiddling about and moving your knitting, because they will move slightly. So here we are. So that first one's still got a little bit of a tail, so I would possibly pull that a little bit more. There we go. I've tightened up that first white stitch. Pull that a bit, and the black, and that's not too bad. And here we have the yellow ones where I started on the left hand side. Again, if I found that this end stitch was really loose, I could just do a bit of adjustment here if I wanted to, just to pull that in slightly. There we go, like that. And then pull these at the end. So I'm quite happy with them, but then just check, you know, you are going to have to spread them out slightly so that they will move with you, and then cut them off there. So that's weaving in ends as you go. I hope that was helpful. That's the way I do it. But as I say, I'm an R about this. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. If you look from the front though, you may see the odd tiny bit of a colour, which you can tighten up yourself like that. But actually it does still look quite neat, and the end stitches are not too bad. So if you really, really hate weaving in ends at the end, and if you've got a lot of them, you might want to do it as you go. One word of warning though, if you've got a lot of maybe single colour rows like this going all the way up, you will have a lot of ends to weave in at one side, quite possibly, and that may make it a little bit bulky, but to be honest, there's not a lot you can do about that, because even if you weave them in afterwards and pierce the yarn, they will be slightly less bulky, but they might still be bulky. Okay, so just bear that in mind and see what you like. So I think that's it for today, folks. Thank you all for listening and watching. Just as a reminder, if you're interested, I know some of you ladies here are in my group already. This is the Facebook group, Cool Wool Design. It's also my YouTube channel, and there's a few things on there like Fair Isle, picking up stitches around necklines, mattress stitch and so on. I'm gradually adding to them as I'm doing the videos that the guys on my Facebook group asked me to do. Okay, so thanks everyone, and this will now be available on Facebook and also on YouTube. See you later. Bye.